After the major success of John Carpenter's Halloween from 1978, a movie that was made on a budget of $300,000 ended up grossing over $70 million at the box office. It was no wonder why the studio was eager to make another movie, even though creators John Carpenter and Deborah Hill were not interested at all in the continuation of a Michael Myers story. But after some studio nagging and, according to John Carpenter, a six-pack of beers, he pushed himself to write the script for Halloween 2, a crucial movie in the history of Michael Myers that would pave the way for the way the remaining sequels would be handled for this white mask shape. Hey guys, my name is Chris, and today we continue on the journey of preparing for Halloween Kills that is set to come out in theaters this October to the first sequel of many for Michael Myers, Halloween 2. Let me bring something out first though. Now, as I was mentioning earlier, Halloween 2 is a very vital movie in the history of Michael Myers because it would set up lore that would birth a motive for Michael Myers to continue his kill spree throughout all these different sequels. As time went on, fans were split on this decision made in the second movie on whether it was a great idea or it ruined what was an amazing, mysterious killer who had no reason for killing. Personally, where I stand in that paveway, I think Halloween 2 is an underrated horror movie that deserves to still be canon in the Michael Myers lore today. I'll explain why, but let's go ahead and hit play on Halloween 2 from 1981. So the movie opens up, we get a retelling of the ending from Halloween 1978 of Loomis shooting down Michael Myers and him escaping, and I gotta say, I love that they did that, and also the fact that this movie takes place the exact same night as the first Halloween movie. This is also one of the reasons why it's my personal favorite Halloween sequel, because there's no need to spend the first 15-20 minutes of the movie setting up brand new characters, explaining what happened to Michael Myers. Nope, we just go full throttle where we left off on that exact same night, and it feels like a perfect continuation. Transitioning us to the title card sequence, with a similar opening to its predecessor, with a lit carved pumpkin and the logo for Halloween as credits roll in, only this time the carved pumpkin would crack open and a skull would appear. After those amazing title cards, we are then treated to a POV shot of Michael Myers and what he's doing out and about in Haddonfield. We see he's not too far from Dr. Loomis as he's informing a local police officer,
I shot him 6 times. I shot him 6 times. I shot him in the heart. I shot him 6 times.
Loomis, I love you, buddy, but it was not 6 times. It was 7. Loomis then drives off on the search for Michael, and we continue the POV shot of him roaming in the back alleys of these Haddonfield houses. This is the stuff I love that Halloween 2 did, because it almost treated Michael Myers like a main character. There's plenty of moments throughout this sequel where we are looking at Michael through a POV or catching up on what he's doing, and I think there's just something really creepy about seeing exactly what he's seeing as we hear his breathing inside that mask, as well as stalking his victims, like Michael looking at this old couple through the window. It's also pretty amazing how quickly the news immediately reports on the deaths that Michael Myers made in the previous movie. Because you gotta remember, this is the exact same night as the last film, and he just killed those teenagers about like 30 to 40 minutes ago, and already there are news reports going on about it. Yet Michael doesn't find that suspicious at all, grabbing the knife that the lady was making a sandwich with, not even stopping to look at the television. That's how you know this man's deranged.
We now return to Pumpkins Gone Wild.
But surprisingly, Michael decides to leave that old couple alone, instead trading in their lives for the nosy neighbor who steps out. And I feel like this was the movie's subtle way of giving Michael an MO, or at least a preferred person of killing, because while he did for some reason avoid this old couple, as soon as he laid eyes on a young female teenager very much resembling someone like his sister or the friends of Laurie Strode, he immediately decides on wanting to take her out. And because apparently no one locks their doors in Haddonfield, we are treated to our first kill, Michael sneaking up behind, stabbing her in the neck, and believe it or not, this blood spatter and this scene is as gory as it will get in 1981. That's one of the things John Carpenter mentioned about going into this movie. That new director, Rick Rosenthal, originally wanted this to also be a slow burn film that had the kills very spread out, much like John Carpenter's Halloween did, but John Carpenter was afraid that because of the success that Halloween had on the slasher franchise and so many of them being made, people now expected high body counts, gruesome kills, and well, nudity. And you know what? Yes, John Carpenter, I do expect that. But along with this first kill, we also get a look at the mask Michael Myers wears in the second movie that, believe it or not, is actually the exact same mask from the first Halloween. I actually had no idea about this until I was studying up and doing research in preparation for this video, because if you put the two looks side by side, it looks like a completely different mask. But apparently the explanation for why it looks different, even though it's the exact same mask they used in 1978, is because one, they got a different actor to play Michael Myers in this movie. Instead of Nick Castle returning, the new body of Michael was played by Dick Warlock, who was shorter and had a smaller head than Nick Castle, having the mask fit him slightly different where it does look weird on him. But most interestingly, Deborah Hill, one of the creators, kept the original mask under her bed all these years until the sequel came, having it collect dust, and apparently also because Deborah Hill was a heavy smoker, it yellowed a little bit. And just imagining that Michael Myers mask under her bed just has me think of this. When somebody loved me, everything was beautiful. Every hour spent together, living in my heart. But continuing on with the movie, Laurie Strode, after her battle with Michael Myers from the first movie, is then taken to the hospital to be treated for her wounds. In the ambulance ride to the hospital, we encounter a character from her past, an older brother of a mutual acquaintance to Laurie Strode, Jimmy, who, I'm sorry, is the creepiest dude in this movie, outbeating Michael Myers. For some reason, this dude just gets turned on at the thought of a passed out girl, and it's kind of weird. And even when Laurie is actually in the hospital, he continues to come in while she's asleep.
I found him, boys. Left wing of the hospital. Jerk and Jimmy, step away from the unconscious girl. We got the place surrounded.
And as a little side in between though, as Laurie's being transported to the hospital, I do find it so interesting that the movie decided to throw in this random little side story that amounts to nothing of a boy who goes to the hospital with a razor blade in his mouth, most likely a nod to the urban legend that some sickos out there put razor blades in kids' candies in order to harm them. It's so off-putting and creepy just to see a kid with a razor in his mouth and has no connection at all to Michael. And this is something I will bring back up in later sequels that I think has a big connection to the franchise in general that no one has pointed out, but we'll get there eventually. We cut back to Loomis and Brackett, who at this point, Loomis is just like, we need to stop Michael. This dude is gonna cause a lot of harm. Brackett still seems to be hesitant on this matter as he has yet to learn his daughter has died. And on this manhunt, they go ahead and find a Michael Myers? Why this was included into the movie, do not ask me, and even I, a lover of Halloween 2 and my personal favorite sequel, cannot defend this scene. The police literally kill an innocent man, and then in the end, it's revealed that this is Ben Tramer? The same Ben Tramer that Laurie Strode had a little crush in and was just mentioned in Halloween 1978. Because of that mention, boy ends up dying in this movie. It's almost like the producers were like,
Alright, boys, how about for Halloween 2, we give Laurie Strode a love interest? Smart thinking, sir. We did set up a love interest in the first movie, Ben Tramer. We bring him back? Now let's create a brand new character and make him super creepy, like Jeffrey Dahmer creepy. Okay, so we just ignore Ben Tramer then. Kill him. What? Yeah, kill him. Alright, I guess we could have Michael kill him. Nah, have the cops do it. I don't care.
But from there, Sheriff Brackett finally finds out the fate of his daughter Annie from the first movie, as what feels like he's the last man in Haddonfield to find out about it, because literally it was on the news, on the radio, all the other police officers knew about it, and then Sheriff Brackett knew about it. And the shock and sadness Sheriff Brackett feels in this moment is too much for him, deciding to retire for the rest of the movie, leaving Officer Gary Hunt in charge. Now I gotta say, even though this boy be looking like Jeff Daniels from Dumb and Dumber, this guy handles the fact that Michael Myers is out there way better. Not only because he actually listens to what Dr. Loomis says, and in this house, we always listen to what Loomis says. He takes the fact that Michael is out there seriously and does everything in his power to try and locate him. I do like how in his first encounter with Dr. Loomis feels almost obligated to give a similar version of his blackest eyes speech of why Michael Myers is so deranged out there.
He was my patient for 15 years. It became an obsession with me until I realized that there was nothing within him, neither conscience nor reason, that wasn't even remotely human.
Almost like he's been working on this speech tirelessly for 15 years, and it's like, you want to hear my speech? From there, we continue on following Michael Myers as he's walking the streets of Haddonfield, only to bump into a kid who happens to be playing a radio that mentions the exact whereabouts of Laurie Strode, putting Michael Myers on a direct path to her. But because we know Michael Myers loves to walk 10 feet an hour, it's gonna take some time. So let's get to know some of the fresh blood that Michael will eventually be meeting in this episode of Myers Anatomy. This setting for the hospital is absolutely brilliant in my mind, not only because hospitals to me are just naturally a creepy, eerie place to be, and at night on Halloween when a killer is loose, even more sets up a perfect atmosphere for Michael Myers to be lurking in the background. While Michael is still trying to locate where Laurie is exactly in this hospital, we cut to a conversation between Laurie and creepy Jimmy, informing her exactly of who she was being chased at, because at this point in Laurie Strode's mind, Michael Myers to her was still the boogeyman, an unknown figure who seemed to be unstoppable and was just hell-bent on going after her. Now finds out that it's actually Michael Myers, the creepy kid killer who is infamous in her town. And I don't know about you, but I think the fact that Laurie finds out it's actually Michael Myers and not this figment of her imagination boogeyman should probably creep out Laurie a lot more, because now it's somebody realistic in her world who she understands, who she's heard about all her life as long as she's lived in Haddonfield. So again, I feel like even though this movie gets criticized for peeling back the layers a lot on Michael Myers, in some aspects I feel like it works better in motivating the characters to want to survive and want to live. Leading us to the security officer of the hospital checking the perimeter, realizing that someone has broken into the hospital, and us the audience knowing exactly who it is. I think this scene was built up really well, because we all eventually feel like we know what's gonna happen. This guy's about to get stabbed by Michael Myers one way or another, and the scene really drags it out, feeding the audience with visual cues on what Michael has done here, being able to break locks with his own hands, seeing a wall of endless tools, and us trying to figure out which tool did he specifically pick to go after this cop with, and at the same time him trying to contact for help with a walkie-talkie and a person on the other end who just can't figure it out. It's not that difficult, Becky, you're a nurse! Until finally smashed on the head with a hammer. But as we move away from Myers Anatomy and what's going on in that hospital, we cut back to the town of Haddonfield, who is now in front of the Myers house, forming a mob, throwing sticks and stones and protesting the fact that Michael is back and terrorizing their city. I absolutely love this. And another reason why I think Halloween 2 needs to remain canon, because a lot of this is being taken inspiration in the new Halloween movie, Halloween Kills. Now, as of me recording this, I still have yet to see the movie, but you already see a lot of the inspiration being taken from Halloween 2 into Halloween Kills. There's gonna be a hospital setting, and from shots of the trailer, we see that the town of Haddonfield is forming a mob and going after Michael. Oh, and did I mention that movie takes place the exact same night of Halloween 2018? Like, there's no denying this movie had brilliant ideas, and just because of one twist, this movie cannot remain canon in the latest series. Oh man, what the hell? Would have been interesting to see though what Michael would have done if he was in front of that mob though.
Come on up here, tough guy. I got a little something for you. You mess with one of us, you mess with all of us.
But just like the body count is doubled in this movie, so are the Loomis speeches, cause he decides this mob and the attack on the Myers house is a perfect backdrop for another Loomis speech.
That was a force inside him, biding its time. The staff grew accustomed to his immobility and silence. In many ways, he was the ideal patient. He didn't talk, he didn't cry, he didn't even move.
But as the commercial break ends on Myers Anatomy, we return to our regular scheduled programming of two people wanting to get it on in a hospital, leading to what are my favorite kills in Halloween 2. And no, it's not because some melons appear. Definitely not because that appears either. But just the creativeness this movie was able to take on using something like a therapy bathtub, hospital employees using it as a hot tub while Myers in the background is heating that thing up, cooking them like soup.
Good soup.
The couple does eventually get suspicious of the heat, and the boyfriend goes off to check. And although I still think it's super creepy seeing a background kill that can't be heard, and the partner in front is just oblivious to it happening in the background, I can't help but laughing at the way Michael Myers just came up behind this guy bare-butted.
Hey man, I know it's pumpkin season, but didn't have to go that hard.
Ending off the sequence with Michael just taking that nurse and drowning her in the boiling water. Equally as creepy as the fact that you know Michael's hand is also in that boiling water and it seems to have little to no effect on him. Only fueling my theories that Michael is born with that disease where you just don't feel pain, and is probably an explanation to why he can just continue getting up after being shot, stabbed, or stunned by a glowing butt. I have a girlfriend, I swear. It's for comedy. Going back on commercial break from Myers Anatomy, we cut to what I think is an always odd place scene and small detail in Halloween 2, that before Michael went to the hospital, he stopped by an elementary school, broke in, stabbed a picture on a kid drawing specifically on the sister, and wrote the word Sam Hain on the chalkboard, only fleshing away more mysterious factors from Michael in this movie, and only further building up a background to why Michael does exactly what he does. So not only do we know he's killing people that remind him of his sister or relatives, we also now know he does it on Halloween on purpose. Because even though the original movie took place on Halloween, he just happened to escape the night before it and then had his major killing spree. But for all we know, if he was released on July 4th, that exact same killing spree most likely would have happened. I can't imagine Michael would have looked at the calendar and said, oh, it's not Halloween. Where are the fireworks? But here Dr. Loomis explains to what the meaning of the word is and its connection to Halloween night, and if Michael wrote this, that means he's fascinated and obsessed with the night of Halloween, forcing to make Halloween 2 a vital movie in the Halloween franchise, as every film will make sure Michael kills on Halloween. But while Loomis is in the middle of one of his famous speeches, Nurse Miriam from the first movie pops back in.
Whoa, what is she doing back? It's the speeches. They drive ladies crazy.
She was the nurse driving Loomis around as they were supposed to be transporting Michael Myers, and I always love when horror movies bring back characters from previous movies, even if it's for a small role, but she has a pretty big part in this movie. We then cut back to Myers Anatomy, where creepy Jimmy sees that Laurie has passed out once again from the medicine, finally feeling like it's his time to shine. Laurie in this moment seems to be having some weird reaction to the medicine. A nurse goes off to find the doctor, only to see that Michael has gotten to him first. Stabbed directly into the eye with a needle. What a creepy visual, and we didn't even have to see that kill go down, but we do see this amazing transition. While I admit it was cool the first time in the first movie, I think that was a way better entrance for Michael than it was done in the first film, killing off this nurse by turning her into a piece of candy in Airhead. We find out that's not the only kill Michael made in the Myers Anatomy hospital, as creepy Jimmy goes on the hunt for the nurse from earlier, making sure she's not ratting him out to HR. Locating his boss and feeling slightly relieved he can probably keep his job, but does not realize that Myers drained her of all her blood that is on the floor, slipping and falling. We cut to a nurse who's feeling a little too creeped out in this hospital, is wanting to leave, only to realize that Michael has slashed all the tires in the parking lot. Again, some stuff that kind of takes away from the mystery of Michael, to where the guy just comes off as a mysterious figure on a killing rampage who doesn't do a lot of thinking, now comes off very calculated and smart, because not only did he cut the phone lines earlier in the hospital, he's now stopping anyone from leaving the hospital in a car. Not only that, researching some history on Halloween lore, like Myers is big brain. That's why he's got that mask. But then with only 20 minutes left in this movie, Laurie finally comes in contact with Michael. Yeah, that's pretty crazy watching it back now that it takes all the way to the last 20 minutes for Myers to finally come in contact with Laurie. But it's where the movie really picked up pace for me and had me on the edge of my seat entirely for this third act. We get a great chase sequence of Laurie running through the hospital, evading Michael, but most appealing of all, Laurie stepping into some red lighting, waiting for the elevator door to open as Michael creepily walks her way. I don't know what it is, but when there's red lighting in horror movies, particularly slashers, I am there for it! Laurie manages to get out of the hospital, noticing all the slashed tires, and instead just decides to hide in a vehicle. Cutting back to Loomis and Nurse Miriam, who are being escorted off the case, only for Nurse Miriam to provide the bombshell twist of the movie, and that is the hidden secret of... Oh my... Wait, what was that? Rewind? Red lighting! But revealing the twist that Michael Myers is actually the older brother of Laurie Strode. A fact that would change Halloween canon for the longest time, as now Michael Myers, instead of going randomly willy-nilly to whoever he comes in contact with, is now solely dedicated to going after relatives and anyone who gets in his way. As we continue on talking about all the other future Michael Myers sequels, it will be the basis of his killings. And even though John Carpenter was the one who came up with the idea, as he felt the sequel needed some sort of twist to just keep it from feeling like a basic little slasher, he would even later go on to call it a dumb and silly thing to do, even saying that Halloween 2 is a horrendous movie. disagree with you there, John Carpenter, and you wrote it. While it might seem soap opera or kind of dumb to then give Michael that motive, I think it's the way it's handled in future sequels why some people grew to hate this reveal. Because even though it was never intentional, there are things that kind of point to Michael having this obsession with killing family, as him wanting to get his sister's tombstone and kind of recreate that scene with one of Laurie's friends, how a lot of the victims he goes after really resembled his older sister, pairing the fact that there's sometimes people that Michael just plain out ignores and not wanting to kill, like an older couple or random people along the street. And especially since in the current timeline of the Halloween franchise, Laurie Strode comes back to be Michael's adversary, it seems so odd to me that they wanted to keep her as part of the franchise but not have them be siblings. Because if you take away this one detail from the movie, you could have easily have kept Halloween 2 as part of the canon in the current timeline. But whether some people like it or not, Loomis does finally take this evidence and realizes where Michael is going, pulling a gun on the officer and saying, "Get me to that hospital or else."
Fire a warning shot, right?
We transition back to Laurie hiding inside the vehicle. Laurie happens to catch eyes with the Loomis posse, who is walking into the hospital unable to scream for some reason. Michael, knowing that's his cue to pop in, decides to with red lights! All culminating to the ultimate climax of the movie, Laurie and Loomis teaming up. I don't know what it is, but every time they get together, I feel like it's Batman and Robin. If there was anything more I wanted in future Halloween sequels, it was definitely more Laurie and Loomis team-ups. But as the dynamic duo is together once again, Michael decides to enter the hospital, not giving an F about doors. Loomis springs into action, adding more bullets into Michael Myers, even though he knows it's not effective. The damn old cop don't want to listen, and Michael gets a little knife happy. And I think there is something interesting about Laurie not wanting to pick up a gun and go after Michael. At this moment, she's still her innocent teenage self, where picking up a gun to her just feels wrong. But as they continue to hide out, Michael finds them, and if there's anything we've learned from watching these movies so far is Loomis will give speeches, red lighting turns me on, and Michael don't give an F about doors. Finally entering in, Michael takes one good stab at Loomis, and I can't tell you, the first time I watched this movie, I audibly screamed no, because I love the character of Loomis so much, and just the thought that he was dead right there and then really made me sad. But now it's Laurie's turn to spring into action, and even though she's never held a gun in her life, she perfectly aims at both Michael Myers' eyes. And me as an audience member, I'm willing to forgive it because it leads to an iconic look for Michael in this second movie, the bloody tears. I think this was just such a neat, cool effect that comes off so well on the white Michael Myers mask, with Michael looking like he just watched the end of Marley and Me. But Michael remains persistent, and even without sight, he feels like he can get a good stab in just by swinging around the room. Look, Michael, it's not very effective for killing people, but you would be amazing at the game of piñata.
Hey, Michael, no pique, te estoy viendo. Dale, dale, dale.
We find out Loomis is still breathing and willing to continue fighting Michael, probably really upset that Laurie just messed up his blackest eyes speech, taking matters into his own hands, letting Laurie go free as he sacrifices himself to hopefully kill Michael once and for all in a blaze of glory, leaving Michael to burn to a crisp as Laurie is transported to another hospital as Mr. Sandman plays back on. I think Halloween 2 was a sequel that got straight to the point, knew what you wanted, Michael Myers going after more people on Halloween night, slashing about with a bigger body count, a tone and vibe that I feel is just as creepy as the first, but just much faster paced, bringing in recurring characters and using them for a vital purpose in this movie, but just having the one fatal flaw of turning them into siblings that would cause such a huge mess in the future movies we will cover. Like I said, my personal favorite Halloween 2 movie, but I am really interested to hear your guys' thoughts on Halloween 2, because I feel it does not get talked enough. Do you think it should still be canon? Are you someone who hates this sequel? And if you do, please let me know down below because I'm very interested to hear your thoughts. But until then, I'm Chris, and I'll see you on the next Halloween film.